Ethan was only 10 when the human colony ship landed on the green world of Orin III. The planet had been torn apart by war years before, and now the United Human Expedition was helping to rebuild it. The cities lay in ruins, but life was slowly returning. Ethan's parents were engineers, always busy with machines and power grids. He often wandered off alone, exploring the silent hills and half-buried metal towers that glowed faintly at night. One day, while chasing a bright insect through the tall blue grass, he heard a soft cry. He followed the sound and found a small alien girl sitting beside a cracked dome. Her clothes were torn, her silver hair tangled, and her eyes, large and luminous, were filled with fear. She looked about his age, though her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight. In her hands she clutched a broken pendant shaped like a tiny star. Ethan didn't know what to say at first. He had never spoken to one of the native Aurenians before. Slowly he took out the ration bar from his pocket and offered it to her. The girl blinked, confused, but then took a small bite. Her face lit up as if she hadn't eaten in days. Ethan smiled. "It's okay," he said gently. "You can have it." Her name was Lyra. She had been living alone ever since soldiers took her parents away during the last war. She survived by hiding in the ruins and searching for leftover food near the reconstruction camp. Ethan started visiting her every day, bringing her food and water. They built a little shelter together under the wreckage of an old transport wing. He showed her how to use the human flashlight, and she showed him how to whistle with a reed that made sounds like music. Days turned into weeks. Ethan taught Lyra simple human words, and she taught him how to say her name correctly in her language. It came out soft and flowing like the wind between leaves. Sometimes, when the sunsets turned the sky purple and gold, they sat side by side and watched the stars appear. Lyra would tell stories about the star queens of her people, mothers who sang to the stars to keep them burning bright. Ethan listened closely, always amazed. One evening, Lyra was quiet. Her small hands were clutching the broken star pendant. "My mother used to wear this," she whispered. "She said it would keep me safe, but she didn't come back." Her voice trembled and tears rolled down her pale cheeks. Ethan didn't know how to comfort her. He thought for a moment, then said softly, "It's okay, Lyra, I'll keep you safe. When we grow up, I'll marry you so you'll never be alone again." Lyra looked up in surprise. Her eyes widened, and then she laughed through her tears. "You will marry me?" she asked in her gentle voice. Ethan nodded seriously, even though he was just a boy. "I promise," he said. "Humans always keep their promises." She smiled and placed the broken star pendant in his hand. "Then you must keep this," she said. "It will remind you." Ethan held it tightly, feeling its cool surface against his skin. The small moment became something deep and real to both of them, even if neither truly understood why. But happiness on Orin III never lasted long. Months later, alarms echoed through the settlement. Raiders from the outer systems attacked the rebuilding zones, hunting for technology and slaves. Explosions lit the horizon as human defense ships scrambled to protect the colonists. Ethan's father grabbed him by the arm, shouting for him to run to the evacuation zone. Ethan looked back toward the small shelter where Lyra hid. Smoke was rising nearby. He wanted to go to her, but soldiers blocked his way. His mother pulled him into the transport craft as the engines roared. Through the window, he saw fire sweep across the plains. His heart ached. He pressed the star pendant to his chest and whispered her name, hoping she would somehow hear it. The ships left orbit that night. Orin III became a blur of blue and gold behind them, fading into the endless dark. Ethan cried silently as the colony transport jumped to light speed. Years passed. Ethan grew into a quiet young man, strong and skilled with machines. He joined the Human Expeditionary Corps, where he learned to repair starships that others called hopeless. He worked on engines that burned blue light and shields that could hold against meteors. Yet, even in the middle of battlefields or in lonely repair bays, he often reached into his pocket and touched the small star pendant. It was the only thing he had left from his childhood. He never forgot the little alien girl who had laughed through her tears and made him promise something impossible. Then, one morning, his commanding officer called him to the briefing hall. "Gray, you've been assigned to a diplomatic mission," the officer said. "The Royal Empire of Orin has opened relations again after decades. They requested a human engineer to assist their palace systems." "You're going," Ethan froze. The name Orin echoed in his chest like thunder. Could it be the same planet? Could she still be alive? He didn't dare hope, but part of him wanted to believe. When the transport shuttle descended onto the planet, he saw that Orin III had changed completely. The ruins were gone. In their place stood shining crystal towers that reached into the clouds. The skies shimmered with silver rings of orbiting satellites. The people moved gracefully, dressed in bright woven silks. The human delegation was greeted with formal respect. But Ethan noticed the guards kept glancing at him strangely, as if recognizing something. Inside the royal palace, light poured through walls of glass and gold. The great doors opened slowly, revealing the throne hall. Ethan's boots echoed against the marble floor as he followed the ambassador. At the far end, on a high dais surrounded by banners of silver and blue, sat the ruler of the Orin Empire. When Ethan looked up, his breath caught in his throat. It was her, Lyra. Her silver hair now fell like silk over a golden crown. Her eyes, still glowing softly, watched him with deep calm and emotion. She looked older, wiser, and stronger. But Ethan knew that face, that voice, that soul. The courtiers whispered among themselves as she stood from her throne. The hall fell silent. She stepped down slowly, her long robe gliding across the floor. "Ethan Gray," she said, her voice steady and filled with memory. "You once promised me something long ago." Ethan could not move. The sound of his name from her lips felt like a forgotten song. "Lyra," he whispered. She stopped before him and looked directly into his eyes. "You said you would marry me so that I would never be alone again," she said quietly. "I have waited many years to see if humans keep their word." Gasps filled the hall. The nobles turned their heads, shocked. Ethan stood frozen, unable to speak. He could feel the small star pendant burning warm in his pocket, as if it recognized its true owner. Lyra's gaze softened. For a moment, the grand hall disappeared, and all he could see was the girl who once sat with him under a broken dome, laughing through her tears. The silence stretched. Then, somewhere deep in his heart, Ethan knew the truth. The promise of a child had reached across galaxies and time to this moment. He bowed his head not out of duty, but out of something far greater: respect, wonder, and a feeling that humans were capable of keeping even the oldest promises. The royal hall remained silent, waiting for what would happen next. The royal council murmured among themselves. Humans were outsiders, often underestimated, even admired for their courage, but never fully trusted. Some whispered that no human could ever be fit for a royal bond, let alone the Queen of Orin herself. Lyra's advisors, their robes glinting like starlight, urged her to step back. "Your Majesty," one said quietly, "this is unwise. He is human, not Orinian. A royal alliance with him could cause unrest." Lyra's gaze did not waver. She had ruled her people through wars, famine, and betrayal, yet her mind kept returning to a memory decades old, a small boy who had held out food and a promise when all seemed lost. That promise had shaped her life, reminding her that even across years and worlds, loyalty and kindness existed. "He is the one I trust," she said calmly. "No one else matters in this." Ethan's mind spun. He wanted to protest, to insist that Lyra deserved a ruler among her own people. He did not see himself as someone fit for royalty. Yet the warmth of the star pendant in his pocket reminded him that he was more than the sum of titles and training. This was a promise, a thread from childhood, stronger than distance, time, or danger. The queen, sensing his hesitation, stepped closer. Her silver hair shimmered under the palace lights, and her eyes, though regal, were tender. "You once said you would keep me from being alone," she said softly, "even when everything around us was chaos. You promised a child, and now I ask the man you have become to honor that promise." Ethan swallowed hard. He could feel the weight of every choice he had made since leaving Orin III. He had trained, learned, and survived countless battles. He had repaired starships thought unsalvageable and explored the edge of the galaxy, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was the girl he had promised long ago, now a queen in her own right, waiting for him to act. Before he could speak, alarms blared across the palace. Outside, the horizon glowed red. A fleet of ships, unlike any human or Orinian vessels, appeared in orbit. The enemy was vast and powerful, clearly intending to take the planet and subjugate the Empire. Courtiers and soldiers panicked, unsure how to fight them. Lyra's advisors looked to her for command, their faces pale. Ethan felt his heart race. Though a human, he had studied alien technology, and he quickly understood the enemy's tactics. Their weapons were advanced, their shields nearly impenetrable. Yet he noticed weaknesses in their power distribution, flaws the Auranian engineers had overlooked. He stepped forward. "I can help," he said firmly. "If you let me guide the defenses, we can protect the planet." Lyra's eyes softened with hope. She nodded, trusting him fully. "Do it," she commanded. "Help us survive. Help us together." For hours, Ethan worked alongside Auranian engineers. He taught them how to redirect power flows, how to repurpose drones, and how to optimize their energy shields. He worked tirelessly, standing shoulder to shoulder with soldiers and technicians. They listened and learned, and slowly a new plan took shape. Human ingenuity combined with Auranian skill created defenses stronger than either could have managed alone. When the enemy fleet attacked, Ethan guided the planet's forces from the central command. Their first wave of ships was overwhelming. Lasers cut through the skies and explosions lit the night like miniature suns. Civilians were evacuated and soldiers followed Ethan's directions with precision. He moved quickly from station to station, adjusting power levels, recalibrating shields, and redirecting drones to intercept incoming fighters. Each action he took turned the tide of battle just slightly in their favor. The enemy fleet, confident in their superiority, advanced further. But Ethan anticipated their moves. He exploited the flaws he had discovered, creating a chain reaction in their energy grids. The result was astonishing. Enemy cannons fired upon each other and their ships began to falter. Smoke and fire erupted across the battlefield. The Auranian soldiers cheered, seeing the impossible happen before their eyes. The invaders had underestimated a human's ingenuity and courage. When the battle ended, silence fell. The enemy ships had been forced to retreat. The city, though scarred, still stood. The people of Orin III emerged from shelters, gazing at the night sky with awe. For the first time in decades, hope returned. The royal council, once hesitant, now bowed in respect. The generals approached Ethan, offering their gratitude. "Your actions saved our world," one said quietly. "You are a hero among us all." Lyra, her crown glinting under the moonlight, walked toward him. She stopped just short of his side and reached out her hand. "You kept your promise," she said simply, placing the star-shaped pendant around his neck. "Even when I thought it was impossible, you remembered me." Ethan's throat tightened. "I didn't do this for reward," he said softly. "I did it because a friend once trusted me. Because you trusted me." Lyra smiled, the glow of her eyes matching the brilliance of the twin moons above the palace. "Then let our trust continue," she whispered. "Let it shape a future for both our peoples." The crowd around them cheered. Humans and Auranians alike celebrated the union not only of two people but of two worlds, united by courage, loyalty, and the simple power of a promise. Throughout the night, music filled the palace halls, and the people danced beneath the crystal towers, their shadows long and flickering in the moonlight. Ethan and Lyra stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. The ruins of their childhood were gone, replaced by towers and spires shining like stars brought to the ground. Yet for both of them the city was secondary. What mattered was that the promise made in innocence and remembered through hardship had endured. "I can't believe this is real," Ethan said, holding her hand. "We went from broken shelters to this kingdom." Lyra laughed softly. "Life is full of surprises," she replied. "And sometimes those who are underestimated can change everything." She squeezed his hand, her fingers warm and strong. "You taught me that even when you were just a boy." Ethan looked out at the horizon. Beyond the city, the galaxy stretched in endless darkness, full of stars and possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, he felt that humans, with their stubborn hearts and inventive minds, could stand among the stars not as visitors, but as equals. "Humans keep their promises," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "Yes," Lyra agreed, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. "And sometimes those promises can save worlds." The twin moons rose higher, casting silver light over the palace. Together they watched the horizon, knowing that their childhood vow had not only survived but had become the foundation of a future for both humans and Auranians. They stood hand in hand, ready for whatever the galaxy might bring, knowing that courage, loyalty, and the bonds formed in innocence were stronger than any weapon or ruler. The city around them sparkled like a constellation brought to life, and as the night deepened, the first chapter of a shared destiny between two worlds was written, not with laws or armies, but with a simple promise made long ago, kept across the stars and honored at last. Ethan smiled. Feeling the weight of the years fall away, Lyra's eyes met his, bright with emotion. "We kept our promise," she said softly. "Yes," he replied. "We did." And as the first light of dawn began to touch the crystal towers, humans and Arenians alike awoke to a world forever changed, a world where friendship, courage, and loyalty could overcome distance, danger, and time. And for Ethan and Lyra, the promise of a childhood was no longer just a memory. It was their life, their kingdom, and their future.